BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Classical Fix. I am Clemmie and I'm absolutely thrilled to be back for a special episode with a really wonderful guest, Jamie Dornan. His new film, Belfast, is out in January, and he also has a new drama on BBC One, The Tourist. We have a lot to talk about, so let's go straight into the playlist.
If I were as tall as they,
That's a little taste of Jamie Dornan's playlist. When this arrived in your inbox, what did you think?
I think I was essentially kind of frightened because I have a very weak knowledge of classical music. I have probably a better knowledge of like sort of more neoclassical stuff and more recent stuff, more stuff from, you know, a lot of the Icelandic composers. You know, my wife is a film composer, but I was just worried that I would just have to sound cleverer than I am about something that I don't know that much about.
Okay, this is, I guess, the point of this program and this podcast, and I suppose, you know, something that I have been banging on about for a long time. You know, classical music has been basically sidelined for most normal people, and that's something that I really want to change. It's just music. It's just music. And what do you think?
I do feel that as much as I totally agree with that, I think we're more aware of it, or it's sort of more in our lives. As people who don't consider themselves into classical music, it is a bigger part of your life than you realise, because it is in movies that we love, and it is in adverts that we love, and it is just sort of sneakily sort of inserted into our minds through so many different mediums. And I think that's a lovely thing about it. Particularly a lot of the old, you know, the sort of Bachs and Beethovens of the world. There's a lot of that you don't even realise you know it.
Yeah. Okay, we should talk about your Classical Fix playlist, and we're going to start with David Lang. How did this land for you?
So first, I feared the worst because I'm not a religious person, let's say. I feel that when I hear choral music, it makes me think of church, and a church is somewhere I feel uncomfortable. But when this started, I was like, oh God, here we go. I'm just uncomfortable. I'm sweating here, just even considering it. But then, you know, I find myself slipping into a very calm state, you know. I mean, there's actually a lot about religion and the sort of act of worship and going to church that I actually, you know, I'm actually kind of into. You know, I kind of like it, and I like the idea of the sort of coming together and the community aspect of it, and everyone in full voice singing and getting to listen to beautiful choral music. It doesn't mean I don't have an appreciation for, like, I think this is actually really beautiful, and the blend of the voices is stunning.
I get very emotional about, like, human beings coming together, whether it's like in a football stadium or a nightclub or a cinema or it's, you know, whatever it is that's community. And you said something about the blend and the sense of suddenly you've got a human there and here and they're together, and that's optimistic somehow for me. Maybe I'm just completely like sentimental.
I often have an issue with choral music in terms of I can never understand entirely what they're saying. I always find I sort of don't tune in like I would to lyrics of, I don't know, let's say Bob Dylan or someone who's really like, you're really hearing those lyrics he's speaking to you. I think often with something like this, it's sort of lost on me a bit what they're saying, and maybe that's a good thing if what they're saying is all quite worshipy, because it's sort of lost on me, but I love the melody of it.
These are very, very, very ancient Hebrew text, but he's talking about, when he's commented on this piece, about cycles and life cycles, and he says at one point, or what the text says, you know, from where the rivers run, they run again. And there's something quite, I don't know, hopeful somehow.
Very hopeful and beautiful and poignant. And yeah, I wish I understood what they were saying when they were singing that.
The composer here, David Lang, he's just, I think, a really, really interesting guy. He's written movie tracks, opera, so many different genres and for different spaces. For me, his music is fiercely human. You know, it's not something that you have to like decipher. What the music? What does it mean? I don't know. Every day it could be totally different. But like, if it could meet you where you are on that day or that moment, and something resonates in you, then great. And if you don't, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I buy that. He's definitely someone that I am going to explore more of, certainly. And I didn't think that in the first 5 or 6 seconds of listening to him.
So this is a piece called Reverie by Angela Morley, who died in 2009. What do you think of this?
You can't listen to this piece and not just feel relief in a sense that everything's okay. It sort of felt like that to me, you know. It conjured up imagery immediately for me. I was instantly seeing sweeping landscapes and long lost lovers running into each other's arms. You know, it was like you could feel this tangible sense of romance with it, you know, that I'm a sucker for, I guess, you know, and I feel like by the end, as it moves on and it sort of escalates, it really reminded me of like old school Disney, you know, like the 50s stuff, you know, like Cinderella and stuff. I thought it got very in that kind of realm. The imagery that I began to see at the beginning, by the end, had become animated.
There's definitely an innocence, but a absolute sincerity for me that really appeals to me as well. The composer was born in 1924, and I guess that's a very interesting moment in entertainment and music and movies.
I purposely didn't look. Many of the people I didn't know about, I sort of didn't look them up because I sort of just wanted to live in these pieces that you've sent me. It's so unapologetically romantic, this piece. It really is. And I love that, and it feels like it could only really have been in a time where that was sort of more acceptable. I think people are like, it's not cool to be really romantic anymore.
I hate to use a very cliched word, but I want to say that Angela Morley was a proper pioneer. She was actually born Walter Stott and underwent gender reassignment surgery in 1972, so quite early. And she was the first openly trans person who was nominated for an Oscar in 1974. So just think,
that's incredible.
What that, I mean,
imagine the scrutiny and stuff back then, and for her to have had that surgery in 72 and win or be nominated for an Academy Award, and 2 years later, I mean, you think like that's a big fight people have on their hands today. That's crazy. That is amazing. I wonder, was there more of a sort of freedom in what she wrote after the surgery? That she maybe had finally be able to, make this change that she probably wanted to for the majority of her life and never had the means to. I wonder, would that have affected the way that she wrote music and approached music with maybe more freedom now that she'd finally sort of in her own state got to a place that she actually always wanted to be?
Right, we're going to go on to a very different sound world now.
Vikingur Olafsson for Johan.
What did you make of this?
So this is a sort of reimagination, is it? Is this Bach originally? Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Okay. So I could probably listen to something like that all day. That sort of reminds me of what our dream version of a Sunday is like at home, but the reality is we have 3 kids under the age of 8 and we don't get that. But on a perfect Sunday, we'd light the fire and play music like this and just as probably as relaxed as you possibly could be. I think if I listened to music like this all the time, I wouldn't get anything done. It's such a zen state, and not even in a sort of really calm state. So like I'm ready to write. I think I'd just be too relaxed. I loved this. I really, truly loved it. I didn't really want it to end.
Viking, he's just the real deal that has heart and soul and artistry and intellect and this kind of ability to put it all together and feel like inevitable somehow. And when you say, like, I could just listen to this forever, that makes me so happy. In a way, it's a very sad genesis because it's called For Johann. It's not even Johann Sebastian and Bach.
Is it for Johann Johansson?
Yeah.
Yeah, God, what a talent he was.
What a talent.
And so incredibly respected, and just had so much more to give. Just epic music that could just match anything with the most simple and the most delicate, sparseness of chords could fill like the biggest landscape of the frame. He could just, that's what I love. What seems to be a lot of the music comes out of Iceland because of, I guess, the place itself is so vast, and there's lots of big sky and lots of sort of nothingness. I don't know how they do it. Sometimes it's just like they're just dropping things in an ice pool, and they're just they're just making these perfectly pitched noises that tell a story and add to a story that we're already been given. And Johann Johansson had it in spades.
I feel, again, very moved on very different levels. And for me, maybe it's because of this crazy thing that happened almost 2 years. My brain exploded on a random Monday morning, and be so lucky to be alive. Mm-hmm. And I was actually going to do a recce for a concert series, and the first guest for me was going to be Viking. And he has been just incredible sort of support over this like nightmare journey. But recently, just a couple of weeks ago, he was in the US, and he said, if I can go back via New York, would you like to, me to come to your apartment and play to you? And it was so unbelievably, it was everything. It was everything.
The fact that he did that, it just shows such a unbelievable generosity of spirit. I think that just sort of sums it up, hearing that story, that no wonder people are so moved by your music and what you're putting out into the world. If you're the sort of person, if that's where your heart is and where your sense of the right thing to do is, then you're going to put out music that people are going to just devour and love, and will move them. And that sums it up, that story, it's beautiful.
Okay, we're going to listen to something very different now.
Will there really be a morning? Is there such a thing as day? Could I see it from the mountains if I were as tall as they?
Any thoughts?
So, I listened to this the day that Stephen Sondheim died. So, musical theatre was very much in my head. And the feel of this song felt very Sondheim to me. And actually to the point that I was like, surely this is a Stephen Sondheim song. It must be. And then I looked it up, and it's not. It's actually a poem, Emily Dickinson poem. And I knew a little bit. I knew who Emily Dickinson was. Ricky and Gordon didn't know a great deal about it, I have to say. I love this vocal so much, What I would say is when I read the poem, it's not like it doesn't land, but something about when it is in a song, I just listen to the words much more. For me, with this, they land much more. They're more impactful. I kept thinking about my kids. Weirdly, when I was listening to this, I was thinking about the impossibility of some of the questions they ask me. And you often I feel like a bit of not a failure as a parent, that's too strong, but sometimes I just feel a little bit inept in terms of the kids expecting you to have an answer for every question they have about the world.
Yeah, is there such a thing as day?
Good luck with that one.
Good luck. For me, I'm now looking at this again through this lens of I shouldn't have a day. Like, it's just, that morning I was like, remember your brush your teeth and do that. Monday morning, it's like crazy. Get to the subway, get my headphones on so I can, and then it's just making me the combination of Emily Dickinson's sublime question and the ability that Ricky Ian Gordon to find somehow space through the music.
Does it come from famous places?
To Beethoven, what do you think?
I just, this is almost a sort of piece of music that scares me about, similar to what we were saying earlier about, classical music. This is something that feels like you would need to be able to dissect a piece like this to really gain kind of kudos with people who know about classical music, you know what I mean? But my initial feeling with something like this is I'm so impressed by the audacity of the scale of it. When these guys were writing stuff like this, just the sort of the ambition of it, you have to just take your hat off to. It's so daring and bold to go that big. At times, a piece like this can actually feel a bit unfinished to me. It can feel a little bit messy, at times chaotic. I find myself going like, Jesus, where are you going with this? And then it'll come back to something that I can find a bit of calm in, and then it'll take off again in a way that I don't want it to. It's just so busy that, in a good way, I guess it keeps me guessing, but in a bad way, I can find it sometimes too chaotic, and my mind sometimes doesn't want that chaos.
I just enjoyed the sort of ebullience of this music. I just if I need to sort of need a bit of a sort of kick it up, of come on, just get on with it. Then I
hear that.
It's quite joyful and sort of effervescent, I think.
I hear that, but I think I would probably find my joy and that sort of kick that I need from something that doesn't go on for this long.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm basically doing this slightly cheekily because I originally said to you it's going to be 5 pieces on your playlist, and then I just was like, I can't finish without my hero Max Richter. In my defence, it is a new recording, a more orchestral version of On the Nature of Daylight.
I think you'd need to get yourself checked out if you listened to that piece of music and weren't moved by it.
Yeah.
It's a simplicity of it, you know. Often with art, often with life, it's the simplest things that move us, and it's hearing someone say one or two words to you, or just giving you a nod or a certain look or something that just makes you feel alright, or makes you feel loved, or makes you feel trusted, or that everything's going to be okay. And music has that capability of doing that. And I think this is just a really pure example of that. You know, it's a million miles away from the busyness of the Beethoven there, and I'm not saying you can't be moved by that, but for me, just everything stripped back. I can't listen to this and not just halt and think about the world, think about what's good in the world, the people I love. Truly, I mean, I honestly, that's all, you know. We listen to this piece of music a lot. There's a reason why this is in a few films, and it probably has the same effect on people every time it's heard. It doesn't need moving images, it doesn't need actors being emotive to let you appreciate the beauty of the music and the romance of the music, but when they're put together, it's a brutal combination, you know. This would soften the hardest of men. It really would. I mean, it is just, you melt with this bit of music. I have to say, also, it's weird for me and for us and for my wife and I, Millie, is often this piece of music, On the Nature of Daylight by Max Richter, is often in temp scores for movies that my wife sent before she's then meant to follow that up and put her own music on. It's just really not fair, is it?
I've already talked a bit about Max Richter quite a few times, even before what happened to me on January the 20th, 2020. And in my next book, I've put this on the 20th of January because I really think, you know, not probably only, but this music, I think, has contribute it to the fact that I'm alive.
There's nothing more powerful than that. And I believe that.
Well, thank you, Max, and thank you so much, Jamie. It's been such a pleasure and joy to talk about music and life. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Clemmie. Thanks for having me on. This is I was scared about talking about the music side of things, but life, I think I can talk about a wee bit, but the music side I was scared, but you made it very easy for me, so thank you.